Good morning. Thank you for sticking with us. We've had a little technical difficulty on behalf of California State Parks, the Ports Program, Home Learning, Hearst Castle Story Time. My name's Lainey. I'm a guide here at Hearst Castle, and I want to give a shout out to a couple of people that I know that are watching today. This is for Emmett and for Evie and for Nora Bean and also Keegan and Emily D. Emily D, I know that you're a great fan of Hearst Castle. Thank you for joining us today, along with the others. We are showcasing Iggy Peck, architect. This story, inspirational story, is about a young boy who loves to build. He's an architect. And beginning at a young age, he uses interesting objects that he finds at home in order to build with. His parents are great supporters of his talent. And as he grows, he takes it to school and he builds something very important along with some teammates that we'll talk about and read about in our story today. And then incorporating today into the story is a very important architect by the name of Julia Morgan, who built, designed, was hired by William Randolph Hearst. Her name is Julia Morgan, and we'll be talking about her and kind of comparing her a little bit to Iggy Peck, vice versa, and incorporating a tour showcasing what she has designed and created here on the hilltop. So with that being said, we're going to get started with our story today, Iggy Peck, Architect. It is by Andrea Beatty, illustrated by David Roberts. Young Iggy Peck is an architect and has been since he was 2. When he built a great tower in only an hour with nothing but diapers and glue. Good gracious, Ignatius, his mother exclaimed. That's the coolest thing I've ever seen. But her smile faded fast as a light wind blew past and she realized that those diapers weren't clean. Ignatius, my son, what on earth have you done? That's disgusting and nasty. It stinks. But Iggy was gone. He was out on the lawn using dirt clods to build a great sphinx. When Iggy was 3, his parents could see his unusual passion would stay. He built churches and chapels from peaches and apples and temples from modeling clay. At dinner one night, to his father's delight, Iggy got a bright gleam in his eye and out on the porch built the St. Louis Arch from pancakes and coconut pie. Dear Ig had it made until 2nd grade when his teacher was Miss Lila Greer. On the very first day, she had this to say: we do not talk of buildings in here. Gothic or Romanesque, I couldn't care less about buildings, ancient or new. She said in her lecture about architecture that it had no place in grade 2. And then I want to take your eye over here to what Miss Lila Greer is throwing away in the trash can. Iggy Peck would read and be inspired by different types of books. Here's an architecture book, a Romanesque book, a Gothic book, modern, and also empire. That might seem severe, but she was sincere, for when she was no more than 7, she'd had a great fright on a dizzying height in a building so tall it scraped heaven. On an architect's tour of the 95th floor, young Lila got lost from her group. She was found 2 days later in a stuck elevator eating cheese with a French circus troupe. And after that day, it's quite safe to say that she thought all building lovers were nuts. As a teacher, she taught that, above all, one ought to avoid them, no ifs, ands, or buts. As you might guess, it would cause Izzy stress to hear such terrible talk, but he didn't hear. He sat in the rear while building a castle of chalk. You, Iggy Peck, your desk is a wreck. Tear down that castle right now. You will not build in here. Is that perfectly clear? Do you need to see Principal Howe? No, ma'am, Iggy said. He lowered his head and his heart sank down to the floor. With no chance to build, his interest was killed. Now second grade was a bore. After 12 long days that passed in a haze of reading, writing, and arithmetic, Miss Greer took the class to Blue River Pass for a hike and an old-fashioned picnic. They crossed an old trestle to a small island nestled in the heart of a burbling stream. But they no sooner passed than the footbridge collapsed, and Miss Lila Greer started to scream. We're trapped here. Oh my! At last, kids, goodbye. And her eyes rolled back into her head. She dropped to the ground with a vague groaning sound. Luckily, she fainted, not dead. The class was amazed. They stood there, quite dazed, uncertain of what they should do. But one bright young man was off hatching a plan, which started with Miss Lila's shoe. Soon each lad and lass there at Blue River Pass was working together as one. Second grade teammates working together. And when she came to, Miss Lila Greer knew that something quite brave had been done. She looked in the air and saw hanging there a structure with cables and braces. And on the far side, beaming with pride, were 17 smiling young faces. Boots, tree roots, strings, fruit roll-ups and things, some of which one should not mention, were stretched ridge to ridge in a glorious bridge, dangling from shoestring suspension. It all became clear to Miss Lila Greer as she crossed the bridge over the stream. There were worse things to do when you're in grade 2 than to spend your time building a dream. Now every week at Blue Ridge Creek Elementary in second grade, all the school kids can hear, along with Miss Lila Greer, how the world's greatest buildings were made. The weekly guest speaker in t-shirt and sneakers talks of buildings from Rome to Quebec. Of course, he's the guy who builds towers from pie, that brilliant young man, Iggy Peck. And that is the end of our story. But before we leave this page, I would like to bring your attention to some different styles of buildings in different parts of the world. So we have the Parthenon here in Athens, Greece. We have a German castle, the Neuenstein. We have the Leaning Tower of Pisa in Italy, which is a Romanesque building. We'll go to the top here. We have the Empire State Building, the tallest in the world in New York. We have an Egyptian pyramid. And down at the bottom here, the Sydney Opera House in Australia. And I bring these to your attention because here in the state of California, we also have one of the greatest buildings made and or built called Hearst Castle. And that is where we are at today. Hearst Castle was built by an architect by the name of Julia Morgan. And a little back history about the grounds here at Hearst Castle. It was purchased, the original 40,000 acres by William Randolph Hearst, mother and father, George Hearst and Phoebe Epperson Hearst. And William grew up camping on this land here. So they camped out, Mr. Hearst camped out on this land for nearly 55 years before asking and hiring his architect, Julia Morgan, to build here on the hilltop. Camping used to take place just over my left shoulder here on the main terrace, and they would bring in huge tents, and they had floors in them. That's how his mother used to like to be able to live in those tents. And as I said, Mr. Hearst did that for about 55 years. About 100 years ago, in 1919, long ago, is when he went to his architect, Julia Morgan, and he said, I would like to build a little something here on the hilltop. I need something a little more comfortable than sleeping in tents. And in 1919, they began that teamwork together. It took approximately 28 years to build what we will be seeing today. And in 1920, the following year is when they began. One of the first houses that I would like to start with, and before I start with that house, Mr. Hearst requested of his architect that the style be Romanesque, and that it of the Renaissance, excuse me, and that it be from the Spanish southern Spain. The first house that we will look at will be Casa del Mar. Each of the houses have a Spanish name, and this is Casa del Mar, the largest of the houses. It is considered a cottage. William Randolph Hearst had 18 rooms put into this house, and it is 3 stories. This is the main story. When we go on tour here at Hearst Castle, this is the section that we see. And Mr. Hearst and his wife Millicent stayed in this house for approximately 4 years before Mr. Hearst requested from his architect to be able to move over to the main house. The second house that we will see will be Casa del Sol, and it is just a little smaller than this house. We're going to take a walk down the Esplanade. The Esplanade was created by Julia Morgan also, and it connects the cottages with the main house, and the main house, Casa Grande, will be the last house that we will see today. So let's take a walk. Incorporated are gardens all throughout the estate. We've got agapanthus that are blooming right now. Some hydrangeas in the background. Some lantana. right, and here we are in front of Casa del Sol. So when Mr. Hearst and his architect, Julia Morgan, were designing and planning, they wanted to set the houses just right on the hilltop to incorporate the views that are on the front of the house. But due to our connectivity today, we were unable to get the front of the houses and to take in some of those views. But the sunsets in the evenings of this particular house are just beautiful. And Mr. Hearst's guests would be able to enjoy that when staying here at Hearst Castle. Yes.
Everybody out there in webinar land, you will see a little bit of a hiccup between the live stream and the photo. You're currently looking at one of those sunset photos Lainey was talking about. So there'll be a little bit of a hiccup, but don't worry. We'll be back to live stream after the photo.
All right, so one of William Randolph Hearst's family members that used to stay in this house was Bunky, affectionately known as Bunky, and he stayed in this house for a couple of years. Mr. Hearst requested that this particular house be of different design, and he incorporated the Moorish design, and you can see a little bit of the gold in the windows. That's actual gold that they used to paint with back in the day. You see quite a bit of architecture, art that is painted with gold. And then the second thing, he wanted lions to be a specialty of this house. So there are a lot of lions incorporated in and around the house. So as we go down toward the Neptune Pool, our route is a little bit different today. We will be taking in a few of the lions. The lion that you are now seeing is a standing lion with its paws up in the air. And we're going to take a walk down toward the Neptune Pool. We're walking through gardens again. Our rose bushes are in bloom. They smell heavenly. They're very, very nice. Here's another lion. Good morning, my guide friends. We are taking a left-hand turn here. Here are two more lions, twins, created by craftsmen here on the hilltop. Hello. This is my guide friend Kay. There we go. Have fun with the lions. All right. And welcome to the iconic Neptune Pool. So if you take a look at the structure that is at the far end of the pool, up at the top is a triangular piece. This is called the temple facade. William Randolph Hearst was a collector. He started out when he was young collecting stamps and books, and as he got older, the things that he collected became larger. He collected artwork and statues, and then he saved them. And then when he hired his architect, Julia Morgan, she helped him design the special place just right on the hilltop to incorporate them into the grounds and what you see today. So the pool's name is Neptune, and the center statue is called Neptune, the Roman god of the sea. And then to either side of him are sea nymphs, one on a seahorse and one on a sea cow. And they are over 400 years old. They are from what is called the 17th century. And then if you go down from there, you may recognize from our story 6 columns. They are in the Romanesque style. These are actually from Rome, from the 2nd through the 4th century, and they are thousands of years old. So Mr. Hearst and Julia Morgan would pull together items to create beautiful structures like what you are seeing today. Now the pool came to be because William Randolph Hearst's wife and his 5 children would come to visit Hearst Castle, or it wasn't a castle at the time. They would come to use the tents and camp out just like he did, as he asked their father to build a pool. So to keep with Mrs. Hearst's wishes, as well as his 5 sons, Mr. Hearst asked Julia Morgan to build a pool, and the first pool was completed in 1924. Now this pool that you are looking at today is 104 feet long from side to side. It is 3.5 feet at the shallow end, which is 1 meter. And then if you go all the way to the right side, it is 10 feet deep, which is 3 meters on that side. The water is cold. It is filtered to give you that clear color. It is not heated today like it was back in the day because it's expensive to heat a pool of this particular size. So from here, we're going to take a walk toward the 3rd cottage that William Randolph Hearst built. But on the way, we're going to see a 300-year-old tree. Here on the Central Coast, there is a tree that is native, that grows naturally here, the coastal live oak. It is evergreen, which means that it stays green year round. And this particular tree is approximately 300 years old. So when William Randolph Hearst, Mr. Hearst, would work with his architect Julia Morgan and design, they would sometimes, if possible, build around trees that were already on the property. So this beautiful tree, not only can it be enjoyed from the gardens down below, but it can be seen from the room that is in the corner here, up at the top of what is called Casa del Monte. Casa del Monte is the smallest of the houses built. It is 10 rooms and 2 stories. Mr. Hearst and his wife, Millicent, used this room in 1921. This house wasn't even finished yet. Its construction was not complete, but he requested to be able to stay in it that year because he was tired of staying in tents. And so this was the beginning of his stay within the buildings here at Hearst Castle. So from here, we are going to take a look at the view of the Santa Lucia mountain range. Today we have a beautiful day. Sometimes we have a lot of the coastal clouds that come in, the marine layer, but today it's pretty clear. It was very important to Mr. Hearst that he, his family, guests that would come up here, that he would share his land with, that they be active. He was an avid, a very good horseback rider, and he began doing that with his father. That's when he learned. And as an adult, he would invite people to go horseback riding with him. He would start here at the castle and take his horse all the way across to what is called Burnett, a camp by the name of Burnett Camp, which is approximately 25 miles from here, spend the night, and then ride that horse back to the castle the following day. And he would take family and or friends with him, whoever would like to go with him on those horseback riding expeditions. The last building that we will take a look at today is Casa Grande, which means big house. This house is 68,500 square feet. And maybe for your parents or the adults in your group, they might know or understand a little bit more about what square footage is on a house. Maybe when they buy a house, how big it is described within or by square footage. So William Randolph Hearst built into this house, along with the designer and architect Julia Morgan. As you enter the front of the house, there's an assembly room where lots of people and guests would come in to play games, play piano, do some other activities. They would have dinner and what's called, or any of their meals, breakfast, lunch, or dinner in the refectory room. There's a kitchen that made all of the meals for Mr. Hearst and the people that would visit here on the hilltop. There is a game room with a billiard table and a pocket pool table. So they like to play a pool up here on the hilltop. They had a movie theater, which was a favorite form of, or one of the favorite forms of recreation here on the hilltop. If you go, this building has 4 stories, and Mr. Hearst's bedroom is up in the 3rd story, along with his study, which is where he ran his business. There's a huge library that houses approximately 4,000 books. That's a lot of books to read. He was an avid reader, and he knew about a lot of different subjects. Like our story with Iggy Peck, we're going to compare a little bit between Iggy Peck and our architect, Julia Morgan. So in our story, William Randolph Hearst hires Julia Morgan to help him build here at Hearst Castle. William Randolph Hearst didn't call this his castle. He referred to it as the ranch. This was his home. William Randolph Hearst and Julia Morgan were teammates, so to speak, and they worked together for approximately 28 years, almost 30 years here at the hilltop. They were the first two people within the team, but then it expanded. Julia Morgan would hire and bring on craftsmen, craftspeople to help create what you see here today. Iggy Peck had a team of his second grade classmates, and together they built that bridge that helped save his teacher. Like Iggy Peck, although Iggy Peck used objects from his home, such as peaches and apples, modeling clay in order to build, and a few stinky items too. Julia Morgan uses concrete reinforced with steel. And she did that because she needed a material that was very, very strong to withstand California earthquakes as well as fire, which we have here in this San Simeon, California area. Lastly, it's very important to have team members that help you create and do whatever you need to do in life. And Hearst Castle is a project that took a lot of teamwork in order to create. This brings us to a close today for our story time with our story, Iggy Peck Architect. On behalf of California State Parks, my name is Lainey. Through the Ports and the Home Learning Program, we are so glad that you joined us today and you hung in there through the technical difficulties. We apologize for that. It's part of the nature of being at 16,000 feet here on the hilltop, and this sometimes happens. The next story time that we will have, we will showcase and learn a little bit more about Julia Morgan, and we hope that you will join us for that. Have a great day. Thank you for staying in there and joining us today.